100 miles to the southwest. We've got to remember tornado safety. When you hear the sirens in your area, you've got to seek shelter. Let's go to Ian Cassette for some of those tornado safety tips, and we'll get back here and plot this tornado a little bit more. Ian?
Brooks, it's so important that people know exactly what to do in these situations. And we are going to have a busy day today. There is a considerable threat for tornadoes today because of the strength of this tropical system. So if you are under a tornado warning at any point today, and of course we have this one right now that includes the southwestern part of Brevard County, you need to get yourself to the closest, or at least the farthest away from the outside of your house. That could be a closet, that could be a bathroom. You just want to put as many walls between you and the outside of your house, and you want to get in there. If you have a bathtub, it's not a bad idea to get in that bathtub. Maybe even if you have time, put the mattress over your head, and you have to ride this out there and stay there. It does a decent job at protecting you. It can't guarantee your safety, but it gives you the best chance in these situations. We're going to have numerous tornado warnings today, and you should definitely already be in your house here with the weather conditions that we're going to have, because we have dangerous winds. We're going to see tropical storms, even hurricane force winds that will continue and are expected to rise through the rest of this afternoon and into this evening as we go on into tonight. In Brooks, it's so important that we continue to watch for each of these brief tornado warnings. That they're going to be brief likely today, but they are nonetheless going to be very dangerous.
Ian, thank you very much. Well, let's get back to tracking that tornado. The tornado warning's in effect for about the next 20 minutes. This is going to be for extreme southwestern Brevard County, but the cell itself is going to be moving into southeastern Osceola County. It's moving north-northwest at about 30 miles an hour. Just to give you an idea, the county border is right here. So this is going to be Brevard County over here, and this is Osceola County. And so the cell is moving into Osceola County. Now, we're fortunate as far as dense population centers where there doesn't appear to be any neighborhoods here or towns, obviously. However, if this holds together, and it's likely that as this cell continues to propagate northwest at 30 miles per hour, it will start to enter some more populated areas along Highway 192 at 441. A lot of these are just cross-county roads, of course, but we've got a lot of ranches here. This is near Blue Cypress Lake. Now, on the screen to the right, that is a look at the turnpike. That's near Yeehaw Junction, and this radar-indicated tornado is going to be east of that location, about 8 miles. So you're not going to see it in the shot, but you can kind of see what it looks like down there as far as the skies have that kind of gray, ominous look to them. Otherwise, everything's very still. So these are isolated storms right now, but storms that are rotating because we've got a lot of just raw energy and rotation from Hurricane Ian to the southwest of this location, about 80 to 100 miles. So as Ian approaches Central Florida and the eye gets closer to Orlando through tomorrow morning, we're going to see a lot more tornadoes through this afternoon, and then that'll transition into more of a heavy rain and flooding rain event for tonight for our region. And flooding is going to be a huge problem, but right now we're talking about tornadoes. Yesterday we were forecasting the best chance of tornadoes happening around and after lunchtime. That's exactly what's happening right now. So let's get the latest on this tornado. This tornado warning remains in effect until 2:30. I'm going to stop the animation and we'll pause it here. We'll look for where the rotation is, and it looks like right now it's right over Blue Cypress Ranch Road. And no doubt this is a generally wooded ranch area, and so there will likely be a lot of trees and debris that may be blocking some of these ranch roads once this pulls through. Radar is indicating indeed right here we've got a sizable debris signature from the tornado picking up branches and sticks and leaves. And the way it detects this is that as it's raining, rain has a certain look to it on radar, but the reflection with the radar beam hitting some of that debris looks different, and so it plots as this dark blue coloration. It's a quick cheat sheet to see what's going on. It uses interesting physics to do that, but it's a really good indication of right there. That would be our debris. That's the latest scan. By the way, these are 1-minute scans, so this is updating every 1 minute, and at that track, this thing is moving at approximately half a mile per minute, which is pretty fast. So for instance, if you were on the ground watching this and you saw the funnel, I mean, it would be crossing right on through. It wouldn't be something you'd be able to really outrun. So I want to remind you that, you know, through the afternoon today and this evening, as this hurricane gets closer and we have more of these tornado warnings, we've got to be prepared. If you're under a warning, to get to your safe spot pretty quickly. Make sure you bring the dogs in there and the whole family, and find a place away from windows. No basements here in Florida, right? So we got to find that maybe interior utility room, but kind of plan it out, because also tonight as the hurricane approaches and we start getting into some some of those wind gusts that could be hurricane force, you may want to be sort of sheltering in that safe space anyway. Some of the bigger winds come through if it starts gusting over 70 or 80 miles per hour at your house. Just think about branches and trees and all that stuff. But yeah, the latest rotation from this tornado warning now for southwestern Brevard County until 2:30 continues here north of Blue Cypress Ranch Road. The red polygon encompassing this tornado warning to tell us where it is does include Brevard County, but the cell will clearly continue moving northwestward and enter Osceola County here inside of the next 10 minutes or so. It's moving northwest at about 35 miles an hour, and so it should be there by about 2:30. Now, again, nobody's here. It's just a couple ranches out here, some wooded areas, but an indication of the raw speed that this is happening. Let's take a look at the rainfall and see if we can detect any kind of a hook echo from this, and you can see a little bit of a rotation here, and this will go through various stages. That is the rotation of the tornado. At times it'll look more organized than others. Here's another look at that area on the right-hand part of your screen. You can see the skies are looking very dark. I'm looking at that video. I don't see a funnel or anything like that on the horizon, but it's a reminder that, you know, it can be sort of just a general gray day. But when we're in the presence of a hurricane like this, it really doesn't take much. If you find yourself in one of those squalls where the rain's coming down and the winds are blowing, be ready for a quick spin-up tornado because the whole atmosphere is spinning. And zooming in on this thing, this is going to be just south now of Fellsmere Road in Brevard County. And that's just to give you some reference points. If you know this area, this is Wye River Road. This is 6 Mile Road. And the cell now is going to be moving northwest at 33 miles an hour. And it's definitely indicating a pretty good rotation here. But we may be seeing the cell kind of elongating a little bit, which might indicate that the rotation is falling off a bit, but we're still getting a strong rotation signature south of Fellsmere Road. Let's look at some other products here and get an idea of what we may be experiencing. So here is it's called a couplet. That's a fancy science term, right, to describe when the winds are moving in opposing sections. So this is our Melbourne radar. Green is wind blowing toward the radar. Red is wind blowing away from the radar. And where those touch, you get a rotation. And so that lets us know that indeed, if there's a funnel or if there's a tornado, it's located right here. That's why the National Weather Service has issued this tornado warning for about the next 15 minutes. Let's put this map in motion and we can track where that green and the blue, where they're touching, how it moves along the landscape. And we can also plot it with the rotation. See, here's the rotation. Watch how the red blotch starts moving northwestward. That's the radar indicated tornado. And as far as the bigger picture goes with the thunderstorm encasing it, it's important to have these tools using our Fox 35 Storm Tracker radar because you can see all this rain and it might be hard to think, well, where's the tornado inside of this storm? Well, in a very classic situation, it is right on sort of the back edge of the storm. What happens is the winds get pulled in from this direction out of the south, basically feeding the storm, and you get the rotation as the whole thing starts to spin like a top. Right now, this is going to be moving into Osceola County, and so I expect a new tornado warning to be issued for that area. But this is going to be east of 441, so as far as other population centers here, there's not much going on, but we've got a couple of other indications of maybe other rotation developing around the area. That one is just going to be a radar artifact. It's important to see where the actual rain is happening. So this is where the big tornado warning is for this moment. And for perspective, we've got this located this is going to be about 50 miles southeast of Kissimmee, or another way to look at it is about 20 miles southwest of Grand Valkyria. Now, the National Weather Service has said that over the next several hours, our entire area, including Orange County, will be susceptible for the potential of tornadoes. And there is a tornado watch in effect for our area through this afternoon for that potential. We're watching these storms up here in the Titusville area for possible rotation, also down here in Polk County. But this is the one right now that has spawned the tornado warning. And the latest indication from this one using our Fox 35 Storm Tracker radar is that we have a defined rotation along Fellsmere Road, south of 6 Mile Creek Road, and there is debris that has been detected in the last few minutes on radar, putting this in motion. If you follow the dark blue pixels right there, but there's good news that it may be falling apart as far as the rotation. You know, there may be a funnel cloud, but it may be not touching down at this moment. But there's the latest scan. This is going to be right over Fellsmere Road. Zooming in, you can see it's a lot of ranch land. There could be a couple of ranch homes here. So if you're in this area, that looks to be Arter Avenue. There's Fellsmere Boulevard. Zoom into some of these other locations, get a little bit closer. Yeah, that's Arter Avenue at Fellsmere Boulevard. And so if you're there, heads up. You know, obviously I see a couple of structures here on the map, and we're going to track these. You know, whether this is in a big city or in a small town or in a rural location, tornado is a tornado. So if you're in this area, you've got to get to your safe place, because this is a tornado that's been indicated on radar not just for a brief time, but for a pretty sustained amount of time. Look at the velocity. It's called the storm relative velocity. You got to see where the winds are blowing relative to the storm and the radar. So the radar site's up here in Melbourne. This green indicates the wind is blowing toward Melbourne in that direction and away in that direction. And where those match, that is your tornado. That's going to be the tornado. All right, so that's a look at the latest analysis. Ian, we've been tracking this and we've been talking about this possibility. What are you seeing right now?
Well, we are going to continue to watch every single thunderstorm that forms today, and that is important because every single thunderstorm has a possibility of rotation. We have a giant hurricane that has just made landfall and that is going to be moving across the state of Florida. That is creating a lot of spin, a lot of rotation, and every thunderstorm that develops and moves on shore, especially over the Space Coast. We're talking about areas on the intercoastal and running from Brevard County and up to Volusia County. I would expect there to be a tornado watch extended later on today because of this threat. But here is a current look at the tornado watch that runs through 5 o'clock. Here are what areas you are currently under the danger, or at least the threat of potential for tornado. We obviously only have one active tornado warning, which has not been confirmed. We want to remind you that this is a radar indicated tornado warning, meaning that we are looking based off of what the radar is showing. There is a possibility for a tornado to be on the ground in far southwestern Brevard County, but all the way up to Seminole County until 5 o'clock, we have this active tornado watch that is basically saying that until 5 o'clock, with all these storms moving onshore, we could see some rotation with storms. So if you live in Orlando, in Apopka, up in Seminole County, even stretching up to Volusia County, I would expect this to start to develop through the later evening hours. This is all likely to be extended. Yesterday, this was South Florida. Today, this will be about our area with this tornado threat. And Brooks, that is why every single thunderstorm that forms today, we will be keeping a close eye on, and you can depend on us here at Fox 35.
Yeah, Ian, look at the picture there to the right as well. It looks like a causeway, and you can see the wind really whipping. I'm not sure what we're looking at there as far as the location. If you guys tell me, let me know. I'll let you know. Oh, that's around Tampa. Okay, that looks like maybe the Howard, is that the Skyway? Okay, that's the Skyway heading down between Anna Maria area, Bradenton, Palmetto, and St. Pete. So the wind's really blowing there. But as far as the far reaches of a hurricane, the eye of this thing, the eye of Ian, is making landfall right near Port Charlotte. The landfall happening at this moment. It's about 113 miles away from this tornado warning. So there's a broad reach from where this tornado warning is happening in southwestern Brevard County, moving into southeastern Osceola County over some rural ranch lands. That warning in effect till 2:30, but a very broad reach. So as Ian works northward and the track takes it basically right through Orlando, arriving tomorrow morning, we've got so much rotation that'll be rolling through that any of these thunderstorms that develop, especially the ones kind of on the south side of these rain bands, like for instance, this is the south side of this one band. These are considered more discrete as far as their occurrence. They're not part of like a bigger area of rain. So when you see these rain bands that are kind of individual bands like that, any storms that form along those bands will be rotating, because the entire thing is rotating. So that's exactly why we're seeing that tornado warning in that location. So we've got a couple of different things that will be occurring over the next 24 hours. First off being the rotation, the tornadoes, the downpours. Already we're seeing some minor flooding around the region. Once the core of Ian works into Orlando tonight, we're going to see what could be severe flooding around the region and more tornadoes. And then tonight, later on into tomorrow morning, the hurricane force wind gusts arrive, and that'll probably knock out power for a lot of us, especially with all the rain we've had. All right, let's get the latest on where this is right now. The latest radar indication suggests that indeed we've got a hook echo continuing here. The rain hooking around the rotation. This is going to be in southwestern Brevard County, right on the Osceola County line, 6 Mile Road and Wye River Road. If you know this area, if you're in this area, seek shelter immediately. We've got rotation indicated that fortunately right now is actually potentially weakening a little bit. These storms will cycle often where you get rotation that'll produce a tornado for maybe about 15-20 minutes, and then the rotation starts to wind down a little bit. But to give an idea of the far reach of this, I mean, that picture you're seeing on the right on the TV, that's Fort Myers, and the winds are gusting. Look at that picture. Goodness, just take a moment there. That's amazing. That palm tree is getting whipped. It looks like winds easily over 80 miles per hour with higher gusts. We may see a piece of that here in Orlando by tomorrow morning with some big wind gusts. But it just goes to show you that, 100 miles away, you can get some really severe weather. All right, the latest scan on this shows that the rotation is maybe reorganizing. This is going to be just south of Wye River Road. And let's take a look at the storm relative velocity on this one. So we've got a little bit of a decoupling potentially where it was once one and now it's kind of pulling apart. And that would indicate that potentially this maybe once tornado is pulling back up into the cloud as a funnel cloud, or maybe what's called a mesocyclone, where it's just kind of rotating wall clouds at the base of the thunderstorm. But once you've got a rotating thunderstorm, once you've got a storm that has produced tornadoes inside of the last half hour, you got to watch that really carefully as far as where it's going and the potential it has. And in this cell, moving into southeastern now, Osceola County, just zooming out nice and slow to give you an idea of some of the landmarks. This is Highway 192 going from Melbourne toward the west into Osceola County. This is 441. This storm is going to basically be moving in this direction, so it'll be east of St. Cloud in about an hour's time from now. Now, this tornado warning expires in 8 minutes, and they may issue a new one after that. But this is a good preview of what to expect and a warning, because we've been talking about the impacts. A lot of people are saying, well, it's raining outside, it's not bad. We've seen this all before, and of course we have. It's not terrible right now in our local viewing area, but it's going to start getting bad, and conditions will start deteriorating significantly, where it frankly becomes really hard to travel tonight. There could be puddling that blocks your way on the roads. And when you get these tornado warnings that just add insult to injury and can also do some damage. We saw pictures out of Miami last night, the Miami area, of a couple of regional airports that had, at least one regional airport, I should say, that had tornado damage where some planes were flipped over. Tropical spawn tornadoes are quickly spawned. They typically don't last very long. They're not the strong Midwestern type tornadoes, but they can achieve EF2 or EF3 damage levels, which can exceed 150, 160 miles an hour. So in that local area, you could get the equivalent of like Cat 5 hurricane damage. It is a dangerous situation because they do form with such little warning, and they are very plentiful. In fact, this is the first one of this hour, but we'll probably see several more in this hour alone. And by the time we get to maybe 2 o'clock in the morning, looking back, we'll probably have had several dozen, if not more, tornadoes, and one or two of those may be unfortunately confirmed with damage. So we got to take this very seriously. But again, you see this rain up here, how it's kind of part of a bigger blob of rain, if you will, versus this rain here where our tornado warning is. This is a band that's separated from the heavier and more regular rains to the north. And so this is getting warm tropical energy from the oceans, and the whole atmosphere is spinning, and that's what's allowing for just enough lift in the atmosphere to produce a rotating column of air and ultimately a tornado. So when we're tracking these tornadoes and hurricanes, it's very important, and I'll zoom out and show you the big picture, to identify some of these more outlying bands to get an idea of where the tornadoes will be. And the stronger the hurricane, in this case we've got an almost Category 5. This thing's making landfall with winds of 155 miles an hour right now. That's a really strong storm. That just adds to the energy in the atmosphere and adds to the spin. Look at these pictures here, by the way, on the right. This is Fort Myers. Just incredible shot there to give you an idea relative to the hurricane. That's going to be Charlotte County, rather. That's right here, right in the eye of this thing. And they're experiencing extreme winds right now, which they're calling equivalent to a tornado over a very broad area from Englewood to Northport, Punta Gorda to Port Charlotte, up through Venice in Sarasota County. And they're experiencing the full force of this hurricane. The eye right now is over some of those barrier islands just off of the Gasparilla Bay area, west of Cape Coral. And so just to give you an idea, from where the eye is to where this tornado warning is, it's about 115 miles. But yeah, look at the force of that versus the video you're seeing there in the screen. These pictures are incredible. So Orlando right now, we're under tornado watch until 5 o'clock. That'll likely be extended. And we're going to see, as the hurricane continues working north, conditions becoming more favorable for the development of tornadoes. Because essentially, this band will lift north, allowing the heat to be forced in from the southeast. And by heat, I'm not just talking about when you step outside and it feels hot. I'm talking about the amount of moisture in the air, the humidity, the dew point. Those are going up. This is like stepping off a plane in Jamaica where you get that force of humidity in your face. It feels different outside today because essentially we're getting air transported directly from the deepest of the tropics right here over Florida. Florida's obviously a pretty tropical place, but we're getting a real good infusion of it. All right, our tornado warning continues until 2:30, so we've got about 3.5 minutes left on this. We're going to continue tracking until the tornado warning expires. Let's get a look at what's going on as far as where this is, where it's going. and what it features. Right now, good news, it looks like the rotation is starting to fall apart on this. This would be about the center of that rotation. This is going to be north of Y River Road, and just for reference, this is the boundary right here of Osceola County here and Brevard County here. So this will be moving toward the northwest. It looks like our debris signature has also fallen apart, so it is possible to deduce that perhaps if there was a tornado there, that it is lifted back up into the clouds. The storm is still rotating a little bit, but as far as any kind of a really tight couplet, as far as where you have it's called gate-to-gate shear, where you have the green touching the red, that's now falling apart. So I expect this tornado warning to expire in the next few minutes. All right, I want to show you that big picture again, because this is the critical time. A lot of people are wondering, well, what's all this talk about this tropical storm condition you're expecting, and all this talk about a hurricane potentially? Well, here's the thing. There's no potential about it at this point. It's just a matter of timing, and we've been saying that we're going to have increments of the storm rolling in, where on Wednesday, which is today, we start off with these intermittent downpours, then they become more regular. Tonight, it's going to be all about a steady, heavy downpour of the likes we haven't seen in a very long time, where it rains and it rains and it rains. And if you're under that band, you are going to see what could be over a foot of rain with severe flooding. And then the wind, you're seeing in the right-hand portion of your screen, those winds, the camera's there. We've got the top right one is Fort Myers. The middle right one is going to be the Sunshine Skyway heading down between St. Pete and in Manatee County, the Bradenton area. And the one on the bottom right looks to be a beach cam there. I believe that's Daytona Beach, actually. So the winds are, that's Daytona. Yeah, the winds are really whipping there. And Daytona is, obviously way up here. By the way, Daytona is going to have some storm surge as well. A little bit of storm surge will be working up about a 3-foot storm surge, and in addition to higher than normal tide. So we're going to have some issues there as well. And hurricane force winds are expected now that Ian making landfall is stronger by about 15 to 20 miles an hour than originally forecast. Coming ashore is almost a Cat 5. Cat 5 begins at 156. This is at 155. There's a lot more power with this thing, so it's going to take a lot more time to wind down. That means more rain, more tornadoes, and unfortunately more wind that'll make it farther inland. All right, here's a look at the tornado warning that expires here inside of about a minute and 15 seconds. The good news is it looks like it is falling apart right now. The threat is diminishing. Ian, what are you seeing on your side of things right now?
Yeah, I was checking out the storm making landfall and just showing you those winds that they're experiencing currently. That runs up to Punta Gorda and Port Charlotte, 119-mile-per-hour winds. That's what our radar here is detecting, showing you the strength of these winds. And now typically the strongest winds on these hurricanes are on that northeast quadrant. That's what we're seeing here with those strong winds as they push onshore. And this has led to record-setting storm surge already that has been found in Naples, and that's going to continue to rise. Remember, they have storm surge that is predicted to be in the 12 to 18-foot range. So we are going to continue to see that rise in the storm surge as this storm makes its way onshore. And then from here, we are going to have the storm start to drift to the northeast, slowly but surely moving towards us, as that cone does have Orlando and Central Florida right over the center. So as I kind of zoom out here and show you what we're looking at from a larger view on things, we are looking at what is to be a very windy day where those winds are going to be increasing as the storm gets closer to us. So a closer view on those winds and what we're seeing in our area right now with velocity, and we're seeing those winds that have already ranged in the 30 to 40 mile per hour range that we have with these storms. So you're probably noticing those strong gusty storms that are starting to really pick up and moving onshore. These winds will only strengthen. If you stepped outside and said, this doesn't seem so bad, it will get worse throughout the day. We are under a hurricane warning. We are under a tropical storm warning, some of us, because of the fact that we are likely to experience those conditions. And a reminder of how strong those are, we could see 80, 90-mile-per-hour wind gusts within just the storms, those squalls that push through. And Brooks, that is the careful thing that we have to have with the strength of these winds, is that we've got a lot of rain, which we don't want to ignore that. The flood threat is going to be big over our area. And then those winds as well. Not a great combination.
Yeah, here's the latest warnings from our Fox alert system, our Fox weather alert system. We've got 126-mile-per-hour gust recorded at Redfish Pass. And so that's a pretty serious gust. That's approaching Category 3 level gusts at the surface. That begins at 1:30, Category 3. 106-mile-per-hour gusts recorded in Punta Gorda. 112-mile-per-hour gusts reported at Naples Grand Beach Resort. Can you imagine that, being in a resort with 112-mile-per-hour winds and some wind gusts over 80 miles per hour in other locations? Flash flood warnings for places all the way up. Oh my gosh, that's Nevada. All right, let's get back to our coverage here of Ian. So there's a lot of action going on. Looking at some cameras around our region right now. This is the Hard Rock Hotel camera at Daytona Beach, and it zoomed in. It's zoomed in right now, but you see the palm trees? So my point is, when it zoomed in, it gets a little shakier, you know, because we're like, it's like looking through a telescope where if somebody's stomping around, the whole thing shakes. So it's not as crazy as it looks right from this camera, but it is getting there. Do you see how the palm trees are blowing over in one direction? It's like that the whole crown gets pushed to one side. So we're starting to see some onshore flow from Ian, and this is on our coast. This is 120 miles from where the center of the hurricane is. So we're going to see conditions deteriorating on the coast right now. A look at the port